The secret love Natalie Brooks wiped the flour from her hands, smiling as she placed the final batch of croissants in the display case. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Sweet Dreams Bakery, where she had worked for 3 years. At 24, her life was simple but filled with quiet joy. She hummed softly, thinking about the man who made her heart race every time he walked through the door, Derek. Hammond had first entered the bakery 18 months ago, dressed casually in jeans and a simple shirt. Nothing like the corporate suits he normally wore. He claimed he was tired of pretentious restaurants and wanted real food made with love. Natalie had laughed at that, her brown eyes sparkling with genuine warmth. They started talking, then meeting secretly, and eventually fell deeply in love. Derek insisted they keep their relationship private. He said his family was complicated, that they would not understand. Natalie believed him. She had grown up in foster care after her parents died in a car accident when she was 5. She understood that families could be difficult. What mattered was that Derek loved her, so she thought. The announcement that changed everything 3 months into her pregnancy. Natalie could no longer hide the truth. Derek had been distant lately, canceling dates and avoiding her calls. When she finally told him about the baby, his face went pale. He sat in silence for what felt like hours before finally speaking. "We need to tell my family," he said quietly. "This changes everything." Natalie felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this would bring them closer. Perhaps his family would welcome her after all. She could not have been more wrong. The Hammond estate stood like a fortress on the hill. All white columns and manicured gardens that screamed old money and older traditions. Natalie felt small as she walked up the marble steps, Derek's hand barely touching her elbow. Inside, the house was even more intimidating. Crystal chandeliers hung from impossibly high ceilings, and every surface gleamed with polish. Patricia Hammond sat in the drawing room like a queen on her throne. She was a striking woman in her 50s, with silver hair pulled back severely and eyes that could cut through steel. When Derek introduced Natalie, Patricia barely glanced at her. "So you are the girl my son has been sneaking around with," Patricia said, her voice dripping with disdain. "A bakery worker. How quaint." Natalie straightened her spine. "Mrs. Hammond, I know this is unexpected, but Derek and I love each other. We are going to have a baby." The room fell silent. Patricia's eyes narrowed to slits. "A baby," she repeated slowly, as if the words tasted foul. "You think you can trap my son with a pregnancy? Do you have any idea who we are? The Hammond name has been respected in this city for 4 generations. We do not mix with people like you. People like me." Natalie's voice shook, but she held her ground. "I am a hard-working woman who loves your son. This baby is part of your family." Patricia stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "That thing inside you will never be part of this family. You will get rid of it, or you will disappear from Derek's life. Those are your only options." Natalie turned to Derek, tears streaming down her face. "Tell her. Tell her we are together. Tell her about us." Derek looked at the floor, his jaw clenched. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "Maybe we should think about this, Natalie. Maybe this is not the right time." The betrayal hit her like a physical blow. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying my mother has a point. We rushed into this. You do not fit into my world. I have responsibilities, a company to run, a reputation to maintain." Natalie felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. "You told me you loved me. You said we would build a life together." "I was foolish," Derek said, finally meeting her eyes. The coldness there broke something deep inside her. "I should never have let this go so far. Take the money my mother is offering. Get the procedure done. Move on with your life." Patricia stepped forward, pulling a checkbook from her designer purse. $50,000. More than someone like you would see in years. Take it and disappear." Natalie looked at the check, then at Derek's defeated posture, then at Patricia's triumphant sneer. Something hardened in her chest. "I would rather starve," she said quietly. "I would rather live on the streets than take your blood money. This baby is mine, and I will raise him or her with love, something you clearly know nothing about." She turned to leave, but Patricia's voice followed her. "If you keep that baby, I will make sure you never work in this city again. I will destroy you." Natalie did not look back. She walked out of that mansion with her head high, even as her heart shattered into a million pieces. The darkness that followed Patricia Hammond kept her promise. Within a week, Natalie lost her job at the bakery. The owner, Mr. Peterson, apologized with tears in his eyes, but he had received threatening calls. Other bakeries refused to hire her. Coffee shops, restaurants, grocery stores all turned her away. Natalie's savings lasted 2 months. She sold everything she owned. She moved from her small apartment to a cheaper room, then to a shelter, then to the streets. The nights were the hardest. She would curl up on benches in the park, one hand always on her growing belly, whispering promises to her unborn child. "We will survive this. I will find a way. I will give you a better life." She survived on food from shelters and the kindness of strangers. Some days she felt the baby kick and found strength she did not know she possessed. Other days she cried until there were no tears left. One evening, desperate and hungry, Natalie sat on a bench near the business district. Her clothes were worn, her face gaunt, but her eyes still held a flicker of determination. She pulled out a small locket, the only thing she had left from her childhood. It had been found with her when she was brought to the foster system. Inside was a photo of a woman she assumed was her mother. A man's voice interrupted her thoughts. "That is a beautiful locket." Natalie looked up to see an older gentleman, perhaps in his late 50s, with kind eyes and an expensive suit. Something about him seemed familiar, though she could not place why. "Thank you," she said softly. "It is all I have left of my family." The man sat down beside her, studying her face with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "May I ask where you got it?" "I was found with it. My parents died when I was very young. I have been in foster care my whole life." The man's face went pale. "What is your name?" "Natalie Brooks." "Why?" His hands trembled as he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He showed her a photo of a young woman wearing the exact same locket. "This is my wife, Lillian. She disappeared 25 years ago with our newborn daughter. They were in a car accident. I was told they both died, but they never found my daughter's body. I searched for years." Natalie's heart began to race. "That is impossible." "Your eyes," the man whispered. "You have her eyes. Please, would you take a DNA test?" "I am Howard Chen. I have spent a fortune looking for my daughter." "What if it is you?" Natalie stared at him, unable to speak. After everything she had been through, after all the darkness and despair, could this be real? Could she actually have a family? "Yes," she finally said. "I will take the test." Howard smiled through his tears. "Whatever the results, you look like you need help. Please, let me take you somewhere safe." "For the baby?" For the first time in months, Natalie felt a spark of hope. She did not know if this stranger was really her father, but she knew one thing: her life was about to change forever. The test that changed everything, the DNA results, arrived on a Tuesday morning. Howard Chen sat in his penthouse office, his hands trembling as he opened the envelope. Natalie sat across from him, her pregnant belly now visible beneath the clean clothes Howard had bought her. She had been staying in a guest suite at his mansion for 2 weeks. While they waited for the results, Howard read the paper once, then again, then a third time. His eyes filled with tears that spilled down his cheeks without shame. 99.9%, he whispered. "You are my daughter, Olivia. Your name is Olivia Chen." Natalie pressed her hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. "How is this possible? They told you we died." Howard's expression darkened. "My wife's family never approved of me. I built my wealth from nothing, and they thought I was beneath them. When Lillian got pregnant, they tried everything to stop the marriage. After the accident, I always suspected something was wrong. The bodies were too badly burned to identify. They rushed the funeral. But I had no proof, and I was drowning in grief. I should have fought harder. I should have kept searching." "You found me now," Natalie said softly. "That is what matters." Howard moved around the desk and knelt before her, taking her hands gently. "Olivia, I know you have lived a life of hardship because I failed to protect you. But I swear on everything I hold sacred, From this moment forward, you will never suffer again. You and your child will have everything you need. You are my daughter, my heir, my second chance." Natalie wept in her father's arms for the first time in her life. All the years of loneliness, all the nights wondering why she was not good enough to be loved, all the pain suddenly made sense. She had been stolen from her family. She had been denied her birthright. But now she was home. Transformation and education over the next months. Natalie embraced her new identity as Olivia Chen. Howard spared no expense in preparing her for the life she was meant to have. He hired the best tutors to teach her business strategy, finance, negotiation, and corporate law. Olivia proved to be a natural, absorbing information with a hunger that impressed even her instructors. "Your mother was the same way," Howard told her one evening as they reviewed contracts together. "Brilliant mind, sharp instincts. You have her intelligence and my determination. Together, those qualities make you unstoppable." Olivia discovered she loved the business world. She loved the chess game of negotiations, the thrill of closing deals, the satisfaction of building something valuable. Her professors from Harvard Business School taught intensive private courses. She video called with CEOs around the world. She studied case after case until she could predict market movements before they happened, but the greatest joy came when her son was born. Olivia held the tiny baby in her arms, tears streaming down her face as she looked at his perfect features. He had Derek's eyes and her smile. She named him Henry after her grandfather. Howard stood beside the hospital bed, his own eyes wet. "My grandson," he said with wonder. "Welcome to the world, Henry Chen." "I want him to have your name," Olivia said firmly, "not his father's." Derek Hammond gave up that right. As Henry grew from infant to toddler, Olivia threw herself into the family business. She worked alongside her father, learning every aspect of Chen Industries. The company had interest in real estate, technology, manufacturing, and hospitality. Howard began introducing her to investors and partners, preparing them for the day she would take over. "This is my daughter, Olivia Chen," he would say with unmistakable pride. "She will lead this company into the future." Olivia discovered she had a gift for identifying opportunities others missed. She proposed a merger with a struggling hotel chain that everyone else had written off. Within a year, she had turned it around, doubling its value. She negotiated a technology partnership that revolutionized their manufacturing division. Board members who had been skeptical of the young woman quickly became her strongest supporters. The business deal 3 years after Olivia had walked out of the Hammond mansion. Howard called her into his office with interesting news. "Hammond Properties is in trouble," he said, pulling up financial reports on his computer. "Derek's company is drowning in debt. They made several bad investments, and now their main competitor is buying up their shares. They need a white knight investor, someone willing to inject capital in exchange for partnership." Olivia's heart skipped a beat at the mention of Derek's name, but her face remained calm. "What are you thinking?" "I am thinking this is an opportunity," Howard said carefully. "Hammond Properties has valuable assets. Real estate in prime locations. With proper management, it could be profitable again. But more importantly, this is a chance for justice. You want to buy into Derek's company? I want you to buy into his company? As the majority shareholder, I want the people who threw you out like garbage to see what they lost. I want them to realize that the woman they tried to destroy is now the one who holds their future in her hands." Olivia stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city. Somewhere down there, Derek was probably in his office, desperately trying to save his failing company. Patricia was likely still convinced that their family name and old money would protect them. Neither of them had any idea that the woman they had broken was about to become their savior or their doom. "It is risky," Olivia said. "Mixing business with personal history. You are strong enough to handle it," Howard replied. "The question is, do you want to face them again?" Olivia thought of Henry, asleep in the nursery upstairs. She thought of the nights she had spent on park benches, hungry and afraid. She thought of Derek's cold eyes when he had told her to get rid of their baby. She thought of Patricia's cruel voice promising to destroy her. "Yes," she said quietly. "I want to face them, but on my terms." Howard smiled. "Then let us make them an offer they cannot refuse." The invitation, The negotiations happened through lawyers at first. Hammond Properties needed $10 million immediately to avoid bankruptcy. Chen Industries offered $12 million in exchange for 45% of the company and 2 seats on the board. It was a generous offer, one that Derek could not afford to turn down. The contracts were signed. The money was transferred. And then Howard made one additional request. "We would like to have dinner at the Hammond estate," he told Derek's lawyer, "to celebrate our new partnership and discuss the future of the company. Just a small gathering. Mr. Hammond, his parents, myself, and my daughter." Derek agreed without hesitation. He had no idea who Howard Chen's daughter was. The name Olivia Chen meant nothing to him. Why would it? He had never bothered to learn anything about Natalie's life before she had worked at the bakery. Olivia spent the day of the dinner preparing carefully. She wore a tailored navy suit that projected power and elegance. Her hair was styled in a sleek bun. Diamond earrings sparkled at her ears, a gift from her father. She looked every inch the successful businesswoman she had become. Henry was dressed in a miniature suit that made him look like a tiny executive. At 3 years old, he was bright and curious, with his mother's kindness and his grandfather's confidence. He chattered excitedly about visiting a big house. "Remember what we practiced?" Olivia told him gently. "Stay close to Mommy and Grandpa." "I will be good," Henry promised, taking her hand in the car on the way to the Hammond estate. Howard reached over and squeezed Olivia's hand. "Are you ready for this?" "I have been ready for 3 years," Olivia replied. Tonight, they learn the truth. Tonight, they face what they have done. As the car pulled up to the mansion, Olivia felt a strange calm settle over her. She was not the frightened girl who had fled this place anymore. She was Olivia Chen, businesswoman, mother, and daughter of one of the richest men in America. She had survived. She had thrived. And now she was here to collect what was owed. The front door opened. She saw Derek standing in the foyer, his smile welcoming and completely ignorant. He had no idea that his entire world was about to shatter. Olivia picked up Henry, kissed his forehead, and stepped out of the car. Justice had finally arrived. The dinner begins. The Hammond mansion looked exactly as Olivia remembered, though perhaps slightly less impressive now that she had lived in luxury herself. The marble floors still gleamed, the chandelier still sparkled, but she noticed the subtle signs of financial strain. The flowers in the vases were not as fresh. The staff seemed smaller. The paint on the window frames was beginning to chip. Derek stood at the entrance with a practiced smile, extending his hand to Howard. "Mr. Chen, welcome. Thank you so much for this partnership. You have saved our family legacy." Howard shook his hand firmly. "Business is business, Mr. Hammond. I always invest where I see potential." Derek turned to Olivia, and for a moment his eyes passed over her without recognition. She had changed so much. Her hair was different, her clothes were expensive, and her whole bearing radiated confidence. She was no longer the gentle bakery worker he had known. "And you must be Miss Chen," Derek said, extending his hand. "My father has told me wonderful things about your business acumen." Olivia took his hand, watching his face carefully. "Has he? How kind?" Something flickered in Derek's eyes. A hint of familiarity, a nagging sense that he knew this woman from somewhere. But before he could place it, Patricia Hammond swept into the foyer. Patricia had aged in the past 3 years. Her hair was still perfectly styled, but there were new lines around her mouth and eyes. She wore diamonds that probably cost more than most people earned in a year, but they could not hide the tension in her shoulders. "Mr. Chen," Patricia said warmly, "what an honor to have you in our home. And this must be your daughter." "How lovely." Patricia's eyes landed on Olivia, and for a moment nothing happened. Then recognition hit her like a freight train. Her face went white. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She actually stumbled backward, catching herself on a side table. "Hello, Mrs. Hammond," Olivia said softly. "It has been a while." Derek looked between his mother and Olivia, confused. "Mother, do you know Miss Chen?" "That is not her name," Patricia whispered, her voice shaking. "That is Natalie, the girl, the one from the bakery." The color drained from Derek's face. He stared at Olivia as if seeing a ghost. "Natalie? Actually, my name is Olivia, she corrected calmly. Olivia Chen. But you knew me as Natalie Brooks. Yes. I was your girlfriend. The one carrying your baby? The one your mother threatened. The one you abandoned. Derek's father, Charles Hammond, appeared from the dining room, drawn by the commotion. He looked at the scene with growing alarm. What is happening here? What is happening, Howard said, his voice cold and hard. Is that my daughter is revealing the truth about your family? You see, Mr. Hammond, 3 years ago, your wife threatened my pregnant daughter. She tried to force her to have an abortion. She threw her out with nothing. She used her influence to make sure Olivia could not find work anywhere in the city. My daughter lived on the streets, starving, while carrying your grandson. That is not true, Patricia said desperately. She was trying to trap Derek. She was after our money, was I? Olivia said quietly. She shifted Henry in her arms. The little boy had been sleeping against her shoulder, but was now waking up, curious about the commotion. Is that why I refused your $50,000? Is that why I chose to be homeless rather than terminate my pregnancy? Derek stared at the child in Olivia's arms. The resemblance was unmistakable. Henry had his eyes, his nose, his chin. It was like looking at a photograph of himself as a toddler. That is my son, Derek whispered. You had the baby. I had our son, Olivia corrected. His name is Henry Chen. He is 3 years old. He loves dinosaurs and building blocks. He is kind and smart and funny. And he has never met his father because his father chose his mother's approval over his own child. Derek's legs seemed to give out. He sank into a chair, his face buried in his hands. I thought you had the abortion. Mother said you took the money and disappeared. She said you were probably with some other rich man by now. Your mother lied, Howard said flatly. But her lies do not matter anymore. What matters is that Olivia survived despite everything you people did to her. She survived because I found her. Because I discovered that she is my daughter, stolen from me as an infant and hidden in the foster system by my late wife's family. Olivia is the sole heir to Chen Industries. She is worth more than your entire family has ever been worth. Patricia made a strangled sound. This cannot be happening. What is happening? Howard continued. And here is the beautiful irony. You tried to destroy my daughter because you thought she was not good enough for your precious family name. You threw her away like trash. And now she owns 45% of your company. She has the power to save you or destroy you. Everything you have depends on her goodness, her mercy, her willingness to forgive. How does that feel, Mrs. Hammond? The room fell into stunned silence. Charles Hammond looked like he might be sick. Patricia had tears running down her face. Whether from fear or regret, it was impossible to tell. And Derek simply stared at his son, reaching out a tentative hand before pulling it back. The truth comes out. May I hold him? Derek asked, his voice breaking. Please, can I hold my son? Olivia looked down at Henry, who was watching everything with wide, curious eyes. She thought about all the nights she had cried, wishing Derek could see his baby. She thought about all the times she had imagined this moment. Henry, she said gently, this is Derek Hammond. He is your father. Henry tilted his head, studying Derek seriously. My daddy. Yes, sweetheart. I thought I did not have a daddy, Henry said, his little brow furrowed. You said he lived far away. I did live far away, Derek said, tears streaming down his face. I was very lost, Henry, but I would like to know you now if that is okay with you and your mommy. Henry considered this, then nodded. Okay, do you like dinosaurs? Derek laughed through his tears. I love dinosaurs. Olivia slowly, carefully placed Henry in Derek's arms. She watched as Derek held his son for the first time, the reality of what he had lost crashing over him in waves. He pressed his face against Henry's hair and sobbed openly. I am so sorry, Derek whispered. I am so sorry. I was weak. I was a coward. I let my mother control my life, and I lost everything that mattered. Natalie, Olivia, I do not expect you to forgive me. I do not deserve forgiveness. But please, please let me know my son. Let me try to be the father I should have been from the beginning. Ow. Olivia's expression remained neutral. You broke me, Derek. You told me you loved me, and then you abandoned me when I needed you most. You let your mother threaten me and my baby. You chose money and reputation over your own child. Why should I let you anywhere near Henry now? You should not, Derek admitted. You have every right to keep him from me. But I am begging you anyway. I will spend the rest of my life trying to make this right. I will do whatever you ask. Just please do not let my mistakes cost Henry a father. Patricia finally found her voice, though it came out small and broken. I did what I thought was best for the family. I thought she was using you. I thought the baby was a trap. You thought wrong, Howard said coldly. You destroyed an innocent woman's life because of your arrogance and prejudice. You almost destroyed my grandson before he was even born. If Olivia had not been as strong as she is, if I had not found her when I did, your actions might have killed them both. You do not get to justify that. I know, Patricia whispered. I know, and I have to live with it. But please understand, I truly believed I was protecting my son. You were protecting your pride, Olivia said quietly. You could not stand the idea of your son marrying someone without a pedigree. Someone who worked for a living. Someone you considered beneath you. Well, Mrs. Hammond, I hope your pride kept you warm at night, because it cost you your grandson. Charles Hammond spoke for the first time, his voice heavy with shame. Miss Chen Olivia, I owe you an apology as well. I stood by while my wife did these terrible things. I told myself it was not my business, that Patricia knew best. I was wrong. I failed you, and I failed my grandson. I cannot undo the past, but I want you to know that I am deeply, truly sorry. Olivia studied him for a long moment. Of all the Hammonds, Charles seemed the most genuinely remorseful. Thank you for saying that, Mr. Hammond. It does not change what happened, but I appreciate the honesty. The dinner that followed was awkward and tense. They sat at the long dining table, eating food that no one really tasted. Henry sat between Olivia and Derek, chattering happily about his toys and his friends. Oblivious to the heavy emotions swirling around him, Derek could not stop staring at his son, memorizing every detail. Patricia barely touched her food, her eyes red and swollen. Charles tried to make conversation about business, but his heart was not in it. And Howard sat like a judge, watching everything with sharp eyes. After Henry was taken to a guest room to play with some toys the Hammonds had hurriedly bought, the adults reconvened in the study. It was time for difficult conversations. What happens now? Derek asked, looking at Olivia. With Henry, with us. With the company, what do you want? Olivia took a deep breath. I want Henry to know his father, if you can prove that you deserve that privilege. You will start with supervised visits. You will earn his trust, slowly, carefully. And if you ever let him down the way you let me down, I will remove you from his life permanently. Do you understand? Yes, Derek said immediately. Whatever you say. I will prove myself. I promise. As for the company, Olivia continued, I invested because it makes good business sense. I will be involved in major decisions. I will help restructure and rebuild. But I will not let personal feelings interfere with sound business practices. Hammond Properties will succeed because that is what is best for everyone involved, including Henry's future inheritance.
Oh.
And us. Derek asked quietly, Is there any chance that you could ever forgive me? That we could try again? Olivia looked at him for a long moment. Once, she would have given anything to hear those words. Once she loved this man so much that his betrayal nearly destroyed her. But that was a different person, a different life. No, Derek, she said gently. Too much has happened. Too much trust has been broken. I do not hate you anymore. I have built a life that I love, and I have a father who has given me everything I needed. But we can never go back to what we were. The best we can hope for is to be good co-parents for Henry's sake. Derek nodded, tears in his eyes again. I understand. Thank you for even giving me that. Patricia stood suddenly, her hands shaking. Olivia, I know I do not deserve your forgiveness. I know I was cruel and horrible to you. But please, could I possibly have a relationship with my grandson? I know I failed you, but maybe I could be a better grandmother than I was a mother. Please, he is all I have. Olivia looked at the woman who had once threatened her, who had tried to force her into an abortion, who had left her homeless and starving. She saw a broken woman now, stripped of her arrogance, facing the consequences of her actions. "That depends on you, Mrs. Hammond," Olivia said. "If you can treat me with respect, if you can acknowledge what you did and truly apologize, not just with words, but with actions, if you can be kind and loving to Henry without trying to poison him against me, then yes, maybe you can know your grandson. But the first time you disrespect me or try to undermine me as his mother, that privilege ends forever." Patricia sank to her knees, something Olivia never imagined she would see. The proud society matriarch knelt before the woman she had once called trash. "I am so sorry," Patricia sobbed. "I am so sorry. I will do anything. I will prove that I have changed. Please." Howard helped Patricia to her feet, though his expression remained stern. "Words are easy, Mrs. Hammond. Time will tell if you mean them." New beginnings 3 months later, Olivia stood in the nursery of her penthouse, watching Henry play with his grandfather. The room was filled with toys and books, everything a child could want. But more than that, it was filled with love. Derek had been true to his word. He came to supervise visits every Tuesday and Thursday, slowly building a relationship with his son. He read stories, played games, and listened carefully to everything Henry said. He never pushed, never demanded more than Olivia was comfortable giving. And slowly, carefully, he was becoming a father. Patricia had also made efforts to change. She attended therapy, something she had once scoffed at. She sent thoughtful gifts for Henry that were exaggerate rather than ostentatious. She wrote letters to Olivia, apologizing again and again, never asking for more than Olivia was willing to give. The proud woman had been humbled, and perhaps, just perhaps, she was learning to be better. Howard entered the nursery, placing a hand on Olivia's shoulder. "How are you feeling, daughter?" "I am at peace," Olivia said honestly. "For so long, I carried so much anger and hurt. But letting it go, allowing Henry to know his father's family, has freed me. I am not doing it for them. I am doing it for Henry and for myself. Forgiveness is not about saying what they did was okay. It is about refusing to let their actions define my future." "You are wise beyond your years," Howard said with pride. "Your mother would be so proud of the woman you have become." Olivia leaned against her father, watching Henry laugh as Howard's assistant made funny faces. She thought about the journey that had brought her here. The pain, the darkness, the moment when she thought she could not go on. And then the miracle of finding her father, of discovering her true identity, of building a life beyond anything she had imagined. She had been shamed, rejected, and cast aside. But she had survived. More than that, she had thrived. She had taken every weapon used against her and turned it into strength. She had transformed pain into power, loss into love, despair into determination. The Hammonds had tried to destroy her because they thought she was not good enough. They had learned the hard way that worth is not measured by family names or bank accounts. It is measured by character, resilience, and the capacity to love even when it hurts. Olivia Chen had come back rich, yes. But more importantly, she had come back strong, whole, and surrounded by people who truly valued her. And that was the greatest victory of all. As the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Olivia smiled. Her story was not one of revenge. It was one of redemption for herself and, surprisingly, for those who had wronged her. Because true strength is not found in destroying your enemies. It is found in rising above them, in building something beautiful from the ashes. And in choosing grace, when you have every right to choose bitterness, Henry ran to her, throwing his small arms around her legs. "I love you, Mommy." "I love you too, sweetheart," Olivia whispered, picking him up and holding him close. "More than you will ever know." And in that moment, she knew that everything she had endured, every tear she had cried, every dark night she had survived, had been worth it. Because it had led her here, to this life, to this love, to this perfect, imperfect, beautiful moment of peace.